Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of the viewers from around the world. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of JForex Indicators Explained, I will be looking at one interesting indicator and try to explain its properties, its concept, its possible uses and the customization options available on the JForex 4 platform, the trading platform from the Dukascopy Bank SA. So let us now head to the platform on which I have used the Euro USD's hourly time frame for these candlestick patterns, and on the lower side I have plotted these CDMI, the Chinese Dynamic Momentum Index indicator with default parameters. I haven't made any changes to its default setup, so all these parameters, the input parameters, are as per the default setting. And this is a momentum indicator much like the RSI, but there is one key difference between these momentum indicators and other popular momentum indicators available to trade with. The difference is in its name itself. The word dynamic suggests that its calculation is dynamic. It is not going to use the constant, the same data, or you can say the same parameters for the calculation. It is going to use the one set of data, but it is going to be dynamic. We will have that depending on the price volatility in the underlying instrument, the calculation period will vary for these CDMI indicator. And if there is increased volatility, then more weight will be given to the recent price moves. And as a result of that, the calculation period will be reduced to reflect increased volatility over the shorter duration. But if there is not much of an volatility on the historical context, in the historical context, then we will see that larger data points will be utilized to look at the momentum of the underlying instrument using these dynamic framing. So we will have these parameters. We will have to provide a range, the lower range and the higher range for this dynamism of the indicators calculation, and within that range, the calculations will be done. So we will have these interesting indicator helping us look at the price volatility in a dynamic manner, in a dynamic market scenario. So this is the Euro USD chart, and the calculation is a bit complex. So I will not really go into the formula for that. You can simply do some of the search on the internet, and the formula will show up. Here we will see how we can take advantage of this indicator, and for that we have to get familiar with its customizations options. The interpretation is fairly simple. We use the same upper limit and the lower limit to define its expected range. But if we see extreme values being reached both on the lower side and the higher side, that is also indicative of the extreme price actions in the underlying instrument, and accordingly we can formulate a trading strategy. The classical interpretation is much on the same lines as the RSI. We consider the CDMI's value, the output value, to be above 50, indicative of the bullish tendency in the underlying instrument. And if we have the CDMI output value below 50, then that is indicative of the bearishness being prevalent in the underlying instrument. And these two markers, these lines, lower line is set at 30 and the higher line is set at 70. These are the levels which we utilize to look at the extremes, price extremes reached in the Euro USD. So for this case, the output value of the CDMI above 70 is considered as overbought, and a possible reversal from higher side is expected. Of course, sometimes or even many a times we observe in the market that the underlying instrument continues to trend in the same direction. So that's why it becomes important to wait for the reversal again back below this critical line below 70, and only I think after that we will have some sort of confirmation in place that the momentum might have run its course and it might be waning and we can expect a possible reversal. But again, if the output value of these indicators CDMI climbs above 70, then we have to get cautious again. So we have these extreme values reached occasionally, and sometimes these sustain, sometimes reversal happens. So in both the scenario, we can make a quite informed trading decision, keeping in mind these output values. And inversely, on the lower side, if we have the output of the CDMI below 30, then that is indicative of the bearishness, extreme bearishness in the underlying instrument. And here also we can look for some reversal to happen first, and after that, if we see that reversal sustaining, we can try to go for contra trend trades as well. So both these extreme values on the higher side is indicative of the overbought scenario, and on the lower side it is indicative of the oversold scenario. And if we have these CDMI output values within these range above 30 and below 70, then those are normal values and generally used to look at the volatility and the momentum, on which side the momentum is. If we have these upward moving sloping for the CDMI, then that means bullish tendency is on the rise for the underlying instrument of your choice. And if we have these CDMI in the decline, then that is indicative of the increasing bearishness in the underlying instrument. So that is the interpretation, that is the classical interpretation of these output values of the CDMI. So these are very useful scenarios, and some of the extremes are also quite well illustrated in this chart for the Euro USD on the hourly candle time frame. So here earlier in the day we had these extreme reached on the higher side, and after that we saw the reversal happening and the CDMI output dipping back below 70, and after that it has mostly traded in this consolidation range. And earlier, when we had this CDMI output on the rise and above 70, it would have been better to avoid short selling opportunities as it might have continued to rise. So that is one way to look at it and try to make sense of what is happening. And depending on the market dynamics, we can make informed trade decisions here. Now, there's a line, the 50 can be utilized as a critical marker. So when we have the crossover sort of market signal, we can utilize it to take the trade as well. So one simple way to utilize this indicator is to look for crossover from one side to another. If the output of the CDMI crosses from below 50 to above 50, that is indicative of the change in market dynamics from bearish to bullish. And if we have this output value dipping below 50, then that is indicative of the bearishness being on the rise. So we can take this trade of short selling on the market prices, or you can place a limit order as well. So that way we can take the help of these CDMI. Have the applied price. Applied price can be the close price, or all these options are there. You can vary the applied price, and depending on what kind of applied price you use, there will be some variance in the output value of the CDMI indicator. So please pay attention to these output of the CDMI on the lower side of the chart, this left hand lower side. Now that I have changed the output price, the applied price to open price, we have different plotting for this indicator. Similarly, when I use high price, we have WMA, DMA. I think the OBS was disconnected. Now it has been reconnected successfully. TMA and REMA indicator. We have KMA. So all these indicators, input parameters will give you a different output. So you have to be careful while choosing the input parameters for these indicators. And these are the dynamic momentum index periods. So this is the fixed calculation period, but it will keep varying between 3 on the lower side. So the lowest range for calculation consideration can be anything from upward of 3 to 30 on the upper bound. So we have this range provided for varying the calculation period depending on the price volatility of the underlying instrument. Then we get this output. Just let me take a look if the stream is going through or not, because a while back, okay, it is working, I guess. I'll just take a look and see if it's working, then we will resume, or else I will have to reschedule the stream. All right, the stream is working just fine. So I will now go back to the discussion. So let us now head to the JForex 4 platform. Let us go for editing options again. So here we have these all the options of various moving averages which we can utilize to look for the optimum combination of the moving average type, and depending on that we will have various different ways in which this output value will appear on the chart, and you have to see what kind of moving average gives you the best idea of the changing dynamics in the market, and accordingly you can opt for this moving average. Now, for general, we have this dynamic momentum index period fixed at 14. But as I said earlier also, we have this dynamism in the calculation of the indicator. So the calculation period for this indicator can vary from 3 to 30, 3 on the lower side and 30 on the higher side. And that makes this indicator much more responsive to the changing price volatility, and that is also one of the upside of using this indicator for looking at the momentum compared to other momentum indicators. Now, if we consider the plotting of the output, it can be made more stylish. You can vary the color combination. You can go for any color combination of your choice if you want to brighten it a bit and vary its design. Then all you have to do is increase or decrease in these options, and you will have the plotting done in a very different manner. Even the color combination of these levels, the higher levels, and varied. Here also we get the same option of opting for the styling of our choice. Now if you want the middle line, which is quite important to be more prominent and displayed differently, then you can opt for that as well. And you can increase or decrease the transparency of these two lines, levels, 30 on the lower side and 70 on the higher side. So here we have these indicator looking much more different than what were the initial designing inputs provided. As we have varied its styling, it is now looking much more different. Here again, if we change this, it will look totally different now. All right, now again we see what more can be done. The levels. Now coming to the advanced editing options, we have these option of going for the recalculation on new candle only. If we opt in for this, the output value for the indicator's current calculation period, current candle, will remain constant throughout that candle period unless new candle forms. Until new candle forms, you will have these output remaining at the constant value. But if we don't really opt in for this, then depending on the current closing value, this output of the indicator will keep fluctuating throughout the calculation period. So there is one interesting combination. If you want the calculation period to be highlighted, you can opt in for this. So whenever you have this cursor on the lower side, you will see what is the current calculation period being considered for this indicator. Calculate from custom data. You can customize this calculation of the indicator further. You can go for the instrument from the chart. So whenever you change the instrument from Euro USD to, say for example, USD JPY, the plotting of the CDMI with the same parameters will be now done for the USD JPY. So it won't matter if you go for various other instruments, the plotting will be done for those respective instruments. The calculation period can be also used, and it can be same as the charting period, or it can be different from the charting period. Now here we have the chart of the Euro USD with the defined period of 1 hour. But if you want the calculation of the CDMI indicator to be of 15 minutes candle period, then you can do with the input parameter for the calculation period being defined at 15 minutes instead of 1 hour. So you can vary that as well. It is taking little bit time. Let me refresh this page. It is yet to. Let me restore it back to the hourly. Okay, it can be hard coded to hourly, or you can simply use it from the chart. Okay, all right, it has appeared again. Oh, whenever I am opting for 15-minute combination, it is taking a lot of time. But as soon as I make it hourly, it is instantly reappearing. All right, now I have this is based on 15 minutes as the calculation period. So here we have this another thing. I'm now restoring back to the default parameter to another, say for example from hourly to half an hourly. the indicator will be plotted for all those calculation periods. But if you want to be cleaner for other candle periods, so you can then specify also here for these hourly time frame the indicator will appear. But if we change it to any other candle period, then there won't be any plotting of these CDMI indicators. So here try out this combination of half an hourly, and here you can see that there is no more plotting of the CDMI indicator. So we have to specify on which time frame we want this indicator to appear, and only on that time frame the output of the CDMI indicator will appear. All right, now I am again restoring it back to show indicator on all the periods. So guys, that's it from my side for today's session. I hope you have been able to understand these dynamic market indicators, the CDMIs. Thank you all for joining in. I'll be back tomorrow with a new indicator, new explanation, new uses. Till then, have fun. See you soon tomorrow. Goodbye.